What's up, guys, and welcome back to Try Time Podcast. It's episode 64. I'm Matt.
And I'm Callum.
And today, rather than looking at what's happening on Zoo Lane, we thought we'd look at what's happening back in Super League, specifically the worst signing of 2024 so far. Now, this list probably isn't going to change too much based on what we've seen over the first, 3-4 months of the season. But, we will give some players the benefit of the doubt that they may improve. Now, I think we've got a few honourable mentions, but 3 real key names here in terms of who to mention that just are not doing the business. So, anything to add, or should we jump straight into the first of our criminal culprit signings?
Yeah, let's jump into it. The first flop.
So, well, we probably know where we're heading, and it's to our favourite shambles in East Yorkshire.
That's where we're living nowadays on pod, isn't it? Every
well, I mean,
pod.
we've rebuilt them, and still they have flops on things. So and it's a case of which one do you start with Hull, to be fair, because they've made some incredibly duff signings this year. But yeah, let's open it with. Do you want the guy who's inspired York to a fantastic 12-minute turnaround, or the guy who's just watched his team crumble to a 1-point drop goal against Battler?
I think that kind of the fact that there is 2 options basically shows that these are both flops. The fact that on the day of recording they have both played in the championship, it's crazy, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose technically there's 3 of. Well, how many players did Hull sign in this off-season? 9 of them. One of them's already left.
2 left.
Which actually, that could make them a proper stand for flop already. For Manu Brown, whose stint at Hull lasted all of 4 games, or something stupid, and none of them in his natural position, hardly. And why? Who's the other one that you think that you're saying's left? Because Hoy was last season, wasn't he?
No, Tex Hoy.
Yeah, he didn't sign this season.
Oh no, in terms of who signed, sorry, I thought I was just thinking about who's left.
I was thinking I'd forgotten something really obvious then.
No, you're right. Well,
right, we just at cross purposes. That's fine.
No,
so yeah, it wasn't for Manu Brown, even though he's definitely flopped, given he doesn't even play for them anymore. No, instead we'll start with the man with many hairstyles, the man who Phil Gould said would rip Super League to shreds, and instead has cocked up a basic spread to win that would have won Bradford the game. It is Jayden Okunbo.
You know what I've just realised? People could have thought you meant Tyndall because they signed him this season and he did also play for Bradford.
He was the other one I was looking at and thinking actually they had 3 in the championship this week. But yeah, I'm not going to quite go as far as say Tyndall is a flop. I feel like he was certainly signed with a lot less expectation than, certainly Okunbo has come straight out of the NRL at Canterbury and came obviously with such a glowing reputation from Mr. NRL himself, and a man that I think you affectionately describe as the club's best prop when talking about Canterbury's off-season losses back in our NRL preview, which, as we've found out, none of us know anything about NRL.
Yeah, I mean, are we still on Okunbo, do you reckon? Do we need to go in on Okunbo anymore?
Does everyone already know why Okunbo's not a great signing?
I'm going to say, I think it's like, to a degree, people know Okunbo, and I guess Pele as well, but it's just a weird one.
Oh, you just spoiled the surprise of who the other one was going to be, like we didn't all already know.
I'm going to say, it were pretty obvious, wasn't it, to be fair? But, yeah, Okunbo, I
don't know what you mean. I was going to give it to Jack Walker and Herman SAS, obviously.
But I think with Okunbo, today, he showed glimpses of good go forward. But he's defensively very naive. He's not imposing with the body that he's got. He's not the sort of... a good comparison with him and Tyndall. Tyndall must have taken in 5 times more drives than him. Every set today, Tyndall coming in and doing some
I think
work.
For me, with Okunbo, you watch him in the championship. Bearing in mind, we were saying, 9 months ago, this guy was playing in the NRL. He when he's running forward with the ball in hand, he can run a hard line and make some decent post-contact meters. That's something that we see from a number of ex-NRL players playing at that level, such as, for example, your Josh Tafuas.
Yeah.
What he cannot do is there is no game to pass the ball. There's no offload game. He stands at the ruck, and my God, it's a miracle they've not already snatched the ball, given it takes him that long to bend his 6'4" frame down. His tackle technique is atrocious, frankly. Like, rule 1, if you're going to go up high, wrap the ball carrying arms, not just shoulder barge them and bounce them off into somebody else or bounce them free to make another 10 meters. Or, of course, the Ockenbaugh Classic, come as the third man in to boost your own tackle numbers whilst doing zero work. And I mean, let's just leave that game to a side, which, bear in mind, this is against championship players he's not impressing, not the elites of Super League.
Yeah, he wasn't a standout. You wouldn't have thought, oh, he's a Super League player who's come down. Like, he was nowhere near.
Yeah, but you remember his try at the Hull Derby of all the players to score it? He literally just a kick bounces off him, and he just happens to be fast enough to run 30 meters with the ball, which we will give him his due. He's when he needs to put the foot down, he can put the foot down. The problem is do you remember, I'm going to throw a name from Rugby League past it. Do you remember Amari Carra, who was incredibly quick and nothing else?
Yeah, but he was still better.
He's a much bigger built Amari Carra.
Yeah. Yeah, because Carra always had an interesting defensive technique, but we're always good going forward. Whether it
you just give him the ball in half an inch of space and whoosh, he was gone.
Yeah.
A bit like Kieran Dixon in some ways. Ockenbaugh's less whoosh and more whoosh. But he's also like 3 times the size. So there's a lot more to look. And equally, there's a lot more to try and bundle into touch.
No, definitely. I just think I don't get it, though. I don't understand why he's playing NRL.
I don't understand why the NRL thought he'd rip Super. What are we missing that he did down under that we're not seeing?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this is just us two not watching and knowing anything about rugby. Like, the Hull fans don't get it either. And they've watched him week in, week out. I mean, we've seen him go from starting lineup to one of the key people behind the club's problems to playing reserve grade to being dual reg to the championship. And as far as I'm aware, he's not impressed in any of those 4 scenarios.
Not particularly. No, I think at Bradford he's looked okay, but I think if Bradford had everyone fit, I don't think he gets in.
And I think that's the other problem. Where is his best position? Because he's played second row, he's played 13, he's in the centres at Bradford. At one point, he was saying he wanted to be a winger. Like,
yeah, I don't quite know.
This player who, he's come over from Australia. He's clearly on some form of money and also a quota spot. And yet nobody has a clue where to play him. And this isn't that he's excelling in 4 different positions and actually you can just slot him in wherever and get a nice 8.5 out of 10 every week. This is where's he not a liability?
Yeah, true. It's not like he's a versatile player. He's just not good.
No, we know Johnny's opinion on this, but it's like, Saints sign Lance Hire, a world-class 6, and play him at fullback, and they still managed to win grand finals with him starting at fullback.
Yeah.
Albeit game were over after 2 minutes after he had his lights punched out, but that's by the by. That didn't stop them achieving. You've played French across 6-1 on the wing, and he's looked a really good player in all those positions. Yeah, that's not Ockenbaugh, is it? You play him somewhere and hope he does. I'm actually thinking maybe half the reason you should put him on the wing is he's probably not going to cost you the game as much.
I think that's why we have him. I wouldn't trust him under high ball, like
Christ, I wouldn't trust him under a lot of that. No, that's true. He would probably be pumped under pressure.
But yeah, I think it's silly signing from FC, and I think it's going to be interesting what happens with his contract and how they get out of that, really, because I think it'll be surely they don't have him next season.
And of course, I mean, look, we're not here to comment on legal drama, but if you want to talk about the culture at Hull, he was somebody who came over under a cloud of some form. If you're trying to push this club forward, is that the sort of, this guy's one of your highest earners, he doesn't perform on the pitch, and he's got a potentially, allegedly checkered background.
Yeah.
It doesn't say a lot for the young lads coming through, does it?
Well, it's not going to be the best role.
What do you do? Get convicted of assault and get a 10k pay rise? Like, come on. And then they've signed Hardacre for next year, who has got a criminal record that probably is bigger than any ring binder we've ever had for work.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, it could probably be longer than his actual employment contract.
It's weird though, because like obviously they signed him. It don't matter what position he says he wants to play or whatever. As a second row, they give him the number 11 shirt. I mean, I'm going to use Bradford as an example, but we went over to Australia and got Zach Fulton, who is 10 times the player as Ockenbaugh, and he'll be on 10 times less money, even more than that probably.
Yeah.
Like, there you go. So I hope they're not. I hope Myler's not watching this, by the way, because he'll have Fulton, won't
he? He can have all.
Yeah.
I mean, we've touched on Ockenbaugh. Do we just go straight into Pele while we're on Hull?
Yeah, let's get Pele. I mean, it's would have been more at the same, really, isn't it? It's like copy and paste.
I think the only difference you've got here is I don't think Pele is a I think there's less of a culture problem and an attitude problem. I just generally think the bloke cannot keep fit. And from what we're hearing from down under, this was always the problem he had at Canterbury. He was blowing after 10 minutes, and that's kind of what we're seeing here. I mean, there was the other week, didn't he do something like a 15-minute stint either side of half time? And it's like, that should be the recharge to go and then have another. If you only come on like 10 minutes before the end of the half, I expect to see you doing about a good 15, 20 into the second half, not that being your total across both.
Yeah.
And you've got guys at KR looking at like Doro playing 80 minutes.
Yeah, and I know that's a championship, but
yeah, and I don't think he get his best out of him by doing 80 minutes. But the fact is, he's at least got the stamina to do that if needed.
Yeah.
And Pele can't even do 80 drives.
Yeah, we can't do all. I think he's one of them where I think he's championship level more so than like he doesn't look out of place in the champ. Like good go forward, aggressive defender. If he can concentrate that and not give away a million penalties and get carded, then that's great.
I don't know if I agree. I think he is Super League quality. I just think the problem is he's Super League quality for very limited minutes.
Which is why I say championship.
At this level, you cannot afford to do that because there's too many good players knocking about that actually your fitness is too important. And if this is whole other side of the world still not disciplined enough to get himself fit, that's a major problem for me.
Yeah.
And I don't know how you can expect any coach. Hull can bring in blooming Wayne Bennett and he cannot work with somebody who isn't fit enough to play. And that's the whole reason also why he's gone to York, isn't it?
Yeah.
To get that fitness and try and build that up at a lower intensity level. But, I mean, if you saw from our Hull Derby vlog, feel free to go check that out if you haven't already. We found how many weird takeaways and one very nice chippy outside the ground. I bet he's there every blooming day.
Yeah.
Like, it's got the whole Tuilola Hay Leeds kebab shop vibes about it.
Yeah. And now he's at York, he'll be down at Peter Stewart, won't he?
Well, do buffet every day now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's an interesting one with Pele, and I'm not quite sure because I feel like if you can if you are somehow the person to crack his fitness, then you've potentially got a very solid player there. And I think it will be possible. You look at Hurrell at Saints, and it's probably he ended last season probably in the best shape he's ever finished a season in Super League. Because you saw at Leeds, this always used to happen. He'd start off fit and really well, and then by mid-season, he'd just put the pudding back on, and then never quite replicated those early season performances. Last year, he looked a lot more consistent across the campaign. I'm not saying there wasn't a slight drop-off, but it certainly wasn't the scale of what we'd seen previously. And that suggests that something in the way that St. Helens are run, or the coaching staff, or conditioning, or whatever, works better for him than what it did elsewhere. At the moment, Hull are not the club to do that because they don't have the culture and the discipline. So,
yeah, no, definitely.
Now, I forget his name, but their new coach, is it Cartwright, the Broncos assistant?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
If he can somehow distill this into him, then fair play, he might somehow manage to turn this guy's career around.
Yeah.
But it's a big ask where lots of people have failed before.
No, definitely. And I think, yeah, like you say, there is a player there. You see snippets of it, but fitness it's the game at the end of the day. Like, the best ability is availability.
Where have you pulled that one out from? That's corny as all. Christ.
It's true, though.
It is true, but that is potentially the cheesiest thing I've ever heard you ever say.
Surely not. I've said some dodgy stuff.
That is true. But anyway, should we leave Hull behind now? Because after two pods in 3 weeks on this, I'm getting sick of talking about Hull FC now.
Yeah, let's go on to the third one that we've got.
Oh God, I'm sick of talking about him as well. You know what's coming, don't you? It's Matt Fraudley.
Yeah, I mean, well, you've said it there, Fraudley.
How is this guy still masquerading as a professional rugby league player?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because obviously you've got a lot more sort of
passion.
Passion and not bias, but like
disdain.
You're invested in how good he do. You want him to do well.
I've got more skin in the game.
Yeah, and he's not lighting the world up necessarily.
I mean, God, I think a bloody hamster on a wheel would create more light than him.
It's the kicking game. It's what you do. Like, you're not expecting him to, absolutely, break it line. You just need him to control the game, be a good 7, and have a good kicking game. And at the minute, he's kind of not doing any of that.
He's not doing any of those, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the telling thing was when he got dropped and then Croft was injured. Because in those 2 games, I think, obviously we had Sinfield come in. And don't get me wrong, it was not a perfect number 7 performance from Jack, which at 19, I'm not getting too upset by.
Yeah.
I think the biggest concern is he came in and didn't look. I saw a lot of people use this to criticise, saying we didn't look any different to when Frawley was there. But to me, that's almost more worrying on Frawley because he's 30, 31?
Yeah, he's experienced.
Prime of his career, just come back over from the NRL. And yet he's not playing any better than a 19-year-old in like his 5th senior game.
Yeah.
A guy who's never been allowed to play anyone other than Castleford, it seems, before now. I don't know if that's deliberate or just coincidence, but...
Yeah, I'm going to say it's weird.
And it's like, at this point, where's the ceiling? Because I imagine Frawley's here and he's probably only going to go up to there.
Yeah.
If Jack's here at 19 with barely any experience, he could stay there. He could go up to about there as well, or he could go up here.
Yeah.
You've got that potential. Now, why are we paying overseas NRL quota spots, the rest of it, for somebody who is no better than a 19-year-old kid that we've got in our academy for nothing?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about dual reg a lot. The smart thing at this point would be to dual reg somebody up from Halifax, and they've got no halves and a languishing in Championship.
Yeah, I mean, they've got an half that you
Although
would
actually, let's just carve this back. Halifax actually came up with a good win today, and why was that? Because they had the lead slot on dual reg, including Sinfield.
Oh, yeah, they did, didn't they? Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to largely ignore the fact that despite being there, Sinfield did not play.
Really? Oh, did he not?
No, it was Keys injury free.
Right. Were we on bench or just not?
They weren't even on bench. So I don't know what that's about, but
you'd take Dufresne though, wouldn't you?
I'd take Keys.
Yeah. I mean, Keys, one thing you get with Keys is kicking game, to be fair.
Which arguably is all we want Frawley to do.
Yeah.
Because Croft can do the flashy stuff, and he's doing the flashy stuff, which, considering he's working around zero structure and a very limited pack, it's a miracle he's producing what he is.
Yeah.
Now, what you want is, again, we went up 6-0 against St. Helens. Obviously, we're never going to hold that lead. We all knew that. But you at least want someone that can create those problems and actually kick you out of trouble a bit more. And when you are on the front foot, really pound the pressure on. I mean, it all blends into one with his mistakes, but you had the stupid suicide offload on the second tackle to St. Helens to score. You had, was it Huddersfield when trying to manage the game lead, kicked it straight out on the full?
Yeah.
I'm struggling to think of a game he's played that he's not done something majorly wrong in that, you would expect a 7 of that level to not do. I'm not talking about your odd dodgy pass or your single knock on or whatever that every player has in the game. I mean, you only have to look at Arthur Morgan against Warrington last week. Simple pickup, fumbled it because he wasn't concentrating. Those moments happen. No player is immune from those. This is more the fact that it's every week and it's basic stuff that halfbacks should be doing in their sleep.
No, definitely. I think that's the thing. It's not like he's just not lived up to the standard. It's like he has, like, for example,
that's why I pick him over Lockie Miller, for example, who I think hasn't really impressed many people yet. Cannot do a kickoff to save his life, for God's sake. I mean, the fact that we have to ironically cheer whenever he doesn't kick it short, although whether that's a reflection of what he's been told from the coaching staff, I don't know. But there's a difference between somebody who just hasn't set the world alight, but, has been reasonable under the high ball. He looks like he's got a step in him. There's potential there that playing on the front foot, he could do something versus getting the basics completely wrong and just not. He's been brought in to do a job to replace Caesar, and frankly, Caesar would have been better this season because whilst Caesar was allergic to running, which is something that Frawley does actually do, that is about the only compliment I can give him.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping he's shipped off next year.
Yeah, and that's another one where it's like, how are you going to get out of that contract? That obviously quarter spot, the contract.
I'll be honest, I don't think you are. I think he's going to have to sit as third choice or on dual reg. And they're going to have to go and sign somebody else who's either use this free quota spot that Fuzzy 2 has filled up, or you're going to have to take a punt on someone English who's cheap and will probably slot into third choice once Frawley does leave.
Yeah, someone like Ollie. I know it's rumoured he's already signed for Wakey, but someone like Ollie Russell.
I'd do the swap. I'd do the swap and get Keys personally, because he will happily sit as your third choice. Even something like Rowan Milnes would have been a perfectly adequate addition.
He's good for Rowan, yeah.
Someone, especially if you go from the Championship, who's content to sit as your third choice.
Get Lily back.
Or even fourth choice, depending on how Jack goes.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of thinking Jack needs a full season playing Championship.
Yeah, he needs a season-long loan where almost no recall in there, just like...
Well, the main thing he needs is to play rugby. Because what will happen is he'll play a couple of games and he'll just not touch anything other than reserves for 6 months. And this stop-start's not going to help. Like, give him a full Championship campaign under his belt somewhere. I don't care where.
Yeah.
Show him alongside Paul Sykes at Dewsbury if you've got to. Like, anywhere.
Fuck's sake.
Well, I mean, we all know Paul Sykes will be going round again next year, even if it's League One again.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be worse. Sort of bit of experience to work alongside.
But, just get him in a club playing week in, week out. Get someone who's, lower level Super League alongside Croft, who's going to do the magic. This guy, you only need him to really kick you around the game. For all he can sod off to Fax, where he isn't my problem. Sorry, Fax fans. I appreciate that's very harsh on you. And I don't know what you've done to deserve this, but... And then at least when his contract's up, you can just say, right, sod off. We'll even book your first flight back.
Yeah.
And take the coach while we're with you.
No, I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens actually with that. I think it's harder to, like, Pele and Ockenbo, obviously we've seen loan down to Championship. I think it's harder with kind of like Frawley, I think, as a halfback especially, it's harder to drop him down, I think. Which I think we're seeing to a degree. But, like, I think, Pele and Ockenbo, it's right. And FC are trying to, like, change the culture and stuff, and are like, right, they've not been good enough so they can get shipped down. Whereas I think with Frawley, Smith's just trying to hang on to his own job to a degree, and he's going to try and part of that probably is his signings doing the business.
Potentially.
Like, if Smith goes, I wouldn't be surprised if Frawley goes down to Championship, similar to how once Smith were out at FC, suddenly Ockenbo and Pele are getting tripped down.
Yeah, because I question any other coach comes in and is willing to put up with that level of performance.
Yeah, I can't see it. I think they'd rather build to the future, if anything, and just play Jack.
But then Smith's not the first coach to not give Jack minutes, so I'm kind of... Granted, Agar was probably like 17 when Agar was there, which...
I'm going to say it's been Smith been there since his, the chances to give him starts and play him and stuff. And, yeah, but it's weird that he hasn't been loaned out, but we've mentioned this on the pod before, haven't we? With Sinfield.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're probably our main three candidates. We had a few other names that we mentioned, but for various reasons didn't go for. Do you want to touch on who they were?
Yeah, we can do. I mean, one of them that I know we spoke about was Matt Moylan. And I know Lee fans, before you actually come at us, we're not necessarily saying he's flopped. He's been fine. He's had really good moments. But I don't think he's been like this groundbreaking signing that you maybe thought he was going to be.
No, and we've seen repeatedly, his defence has been questionable.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's certainly attracted attention from down under, of course, his former home, that his defence is not really up to standard. You've got players almost running at him now, tagging him as the weak link in that Lee line. And we have seen the Lee defence drop off, which I think that is compared to someone like Reynolds, who's maybe not as flashy, but is a defensive workhorse. You notice that?
Oh, definitely. I think.
But then he offers you a lot in attack and has a real spark and flair about him that actually, I almost think you get around that, and for that reason, he's certainly not a flop as we look at what the three we have just mentioned are.
Yeah, I'm going to say I think a big thing is a lot of Lee fans. I remember getting a lot of stick when we did the preview for Lee. And
yes, and we were just saying he's not actually yet proven in Super. It could go either way. Well, I don't think he's gone either yet. I don't think he's lit the competition up as one of the best halves, and I also don't think he's a liability like Matt Orford was.
Yeah, but they were saying like Moylan's going to be the man who takes us to that top 3 spot, and
But people saying he was getting nailed on for Man of Steel. I wouldn't even put him as Man of Steel alloy at the moment.
He's no, yeah. I think, yeah. I don't think he's in Lee's best 5 players.
No.
Which is probably getting paid the most. So make of that what you will.
Yeah, it's a bit concerning, but we're not here to judge value for money. It's purely
true
impact at this point. I think in terms of other names that we had in mind, well, I mean, there's Brad Dwyer to Warrington, for example, which that really went well. I think he's been spared here by the fact he's now obviously they've recouped that, sent him to Lee, and he's playing well over there.
Yeah. No, and we questioned when the signing were made, and we're like, how many hookers do they actually need?
Well, didn't they sign him before they got Powell?
Yeah, I feel like they'd already signed him before Burgess coming, like Powell had signed him.
There's an irony there about Powell not signing Powell, but one
move. And then Burgess came in and wanted Powell. This is good. This is going to be a proper clusterfuck to the ears, but yeah. So I think.
Sorry for you audio listeners that's trying to decipher these Burgesses and Powells and everyone else.
Yeah, but I think it wasn't a Burgess signing, and obviously wasn't in the plans. And then Lee, it's kind of worked out for all parties, really.
Yeah, and I think the last one out is to throw into the mix, which I think only misses out because, to my mind, there should have been zero expectation in the first place. It's Andre Savelio.
Yeah, I mean, the fact he hadn't played tells you everything you need to know, really.
Well, I don't rate him at all.
Again, the best ability is availability.
Yeah, but even when he's available, he's
he don't light the world up, does it?
From reports of his previous clubs have said that there's a stinking attitude problem.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't really. I mean, you kind of think, you look at his career, he burst onto the scene at St. Helens with all the potential in the world, yet they still let him go on loan to Cass and then out the door to Warrington.
Yeah.
And St. Helens are normally quite good at judging where their youngsters are going to flourish and actually where they can afford to let them go.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people at the time put it down to quotas and being a Kiwi and that sort of thing, but actually, no, I think they just saw the behind the scenes issues. Obviously, he was at Warrington, what was it, one season in?
Yeah, one
in the end. I mean, I'd actually say that was probably his best spell as well, to be honest.
I feel like he had an all right spell at FC in periods, but
I mean, I'm just looking here, like he'd gone to. He'd originally signed for Brisbane, then got a season-ending injury before it even started. Which how he even got? That's what I mean. Like he somehow got an NRL contract off the back of Warrington.
Yeah.
Which also included a loan at Rochdale for the fun of it, but we'll ignore that part because that's a bit irrelevant. I imagine that was recuperating from some form of injury.
Yeah, which is a big thing of his career, really, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, and then obviously, like you say, you've got Hull, where, to be honest, I would argue the most memorable moment of his Hull career was the racial spat with Tony Clubb rather than anything he actually did on the pitch, performance-wise.
Yeah, I mean, that were a big sort of talking point, wasn't it, at the time?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if we did a thing on it or whether or not we were on hiatus.
We did.
Did we?
We did. Yeah.
There you go. There's one from the Tri-Time archives.
Yeah.
And then obviously he left there last year to go to Huddersfield, which, they weren't too upset by. And to be honest, I can see why. I think the most he's played in a single season for Hull was 17 games, which, again, considering he was brought over from Brisbane, expected to be a big name forward for them. There's a running theme here, isn't there? And just didn't live up to the billing.
Yeah. It's a weird signing from Huddersfield, really, isn't it? I thought that at the time.
Huddersfield are a weird club at the moment. And I think, to be honest, they're probably the next club we need to do a deep dive into because there's a lot going on there with squads, coaching, the rest of it.
Yeah.
I think that deserves a video of its own. And maybe that's next week's job. Then we look into how to solve a problem like Huddersfield.
Yeah, a problem at Huddersfield, which I think is inconsistency. You know, some weeks look great, some weeks look shit, and it's like that sort of.
I think there's a wider, when reading between the lines, there seems to be a wider issue between the coaching and the players.
Yeah.
And everyone's favourite pantomime villain looks like he's ostracised again.
Oh, I'm going to say the Jake Connor hate is unreal at the minute, isn't it?
Well, it is, but also when you listen, it seems to be from everyone else, and then the Huddersfield fans are on Connor's side and on the Watson out bandwagon.
I think I feel bad for Jake Connor because when he has a bad game or does something bad that ends up in the media or on Twitter or whatever, it gets stick. But then I think he does a lot in games. He does a lot of good stuff and don't get the praise for that either.
The problem is it's high profile and high. His mistakes seem to cost games. Like, you know, you've got the St. Helens one earlier this season. You've got last year the kick into touch when you're 2 points down against Leeds.
Yeah.
It's like very notable game deciding errors there. And I think that's the problem.
No,
he seemed to actively cost his team points. Do I think that's necessarily a fair reflection? No, rugby's decided over 80 minutes. If you can't defend for one set and that costs you the game, then there's ultimately more stuff you haven't done well in the other 79 minutes.
Yeah, no, true.
But, you know, that's always the nature of the sport. You know, Miller takes the cop for the short kick out that gave Huddersfield a penalty under the sticks to win at Headingley this year.
Yeah.
You know, there are moments in games that change it more than others. And unfortunately, Connor's found himself the centre of those that haven't gone in Huddersfield's favour. What I do find interesting, and I think this is an opinion that's shared certainly amongst a few people, is, if I can just flip it back to the Leeds fan perspective, if Smith wasn't sacked, nobody would want Watson in as head coach.
Yeah. Yeah, his reputation has definitely taken a dive, hasn't it, in the last year and a half?
Well, I think it was pre-hiatus, the running thing of him being on fraud watch.
You were kind of ahead of the curve on it, really.
His success at Salford was largely built on the fact Rowley was assistant coach. And I stand by that.
Yeah.
And I think now that we've seen Rowley take the head coach mantle at Salford and Huddersfield kind of do what they've always done and flattered to deceive.
Yeah, they
kind of feel like I was onto something then.
Yeah, maybe so. Time will tell.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting off-season for a few clubs, but yeah, Savelio hasn't played. So whilst I think he has a flop, he is one of the flops of the season. I also think more fool anyone that had expectation, to be quite honest.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I think that's probably it. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that you guys want to comment that you don't think have lived up to the billing. Obviously, there are certainly players signed in other seasons that also don't live up to the billing, but this is specifically joining this season. So yeah, let us know in the comments who you think they are. I think on Saturday, we are kind of continuing our running theme of dodgy players with one player each club needs to get rid of. We did this video a few years back, and it certainly caused some controversy. So we can't wait to get cancelled again.
Any suggestions for that as well, by the way, let us know down in the comments.
Stop asking for influence. The reality is we're probably recording this around the time this is going out, so there won't be much help.
Yeah, probably so.
But yeah, guys, let us know what you think of this list. Let us know if you want to see anything else on the channel in the future. As you know, we're always happy to take ideas from you guys and make them happen. And yeah, subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for sticking around. And until next time, goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye.